students and faculty at Georgia Southern University. Okay, so right now we are going to start. So, welcome to Georgia Southern University, the Jianping Su College of Public Health, the Departments of Biostatistics, Epidemiology, and Environmental Health Sciences, as well as the Departments of Health Policy and Community Health. Welcome to our joint BEAS PHI webinar. Okay, PHI representing Public Health Informatics. And it is our great honor today to have Dr. Arthur Tang, Associate Professor of Computer Science in the School of Science, Engineering, and Technology in the RMIT University, Vietnam. And RMIT stands for Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology and their Vietnam campus. And Dr. Tang's talk today is about augmenting minds, not replacing them, AI for qualitative augmentation in public health and medicine. So without further ado, let us welcome Dr. Arthur Tang of RMIT Vietnam. Dr. Tang, please.
All right. Thank you very much, Isaac. Good morning, everybody. My name is Arthur Tang. I'm an associate professor of RMIT University, Vietnam. I'll just give a little bit of background information about myself. For those of you who are curious, RMIT is a Australian University of Melbourne, and we have a campus on Vietnam, and I'm based in Ho Chi Minh City here in Vietnam. So right now it's around 28 degrees about here. So I hope that you have a safe winter on the other side of the globe. I have a very diverse research background. Well, primarily my most recent research focus is in health informatics, artificial intelligence. I also do a lot of work in simulation and modeling, including infectious disease transmission modeling, and augmented reality, applied psychology as well. So I have some prior experience as an academic in University of Central Florida, that's under the Industrial Engineering and Management System Department. Also in the School of Medicine in University of Hong Kong, under the Department of Psychology in University of Macau, and also under the School of Informatics and Computing Informatics in Sung Kwan University, South Korea. I am also a professional consultant in digital forensic, doing corporate crime investigation. I did that for about 8 years in Hong Kong. So I have a very, very diverse background in psychology, in public health, simulation, computer science, and, I do various different kind of things. I have a very apply-oriented mindset. So that's basically where I'm coming from. So today we're going to talk about one of the hottest topic right now is generative AI. Well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but generally speaking, there's a lot of projection about generative AI's effects on the economy, about, increasing the revenue or productivity and so on. So there's a general concept about, people consider this as as an AI revolution, analogous to the industrial revolution that happens, many, many years ago. So, and a lot of discussion about what jobs will be replaced by AI. This is an article in Forbes. They projected a lot of these entry-level positions like programmers, graphic designers, paralegal, copywriters. They will be replaced by AI in the very near future. But I think a lot of this discussion is putting the focus in the wrong place. In my opinion, I think the focus should not be about how AI can replace human. The focus should be how AI can augment humans' capability. So this is a classical moment in artificial intelligence. So this is AlphaGo versus Lee Sedol in 2016. So this is the first time in human history that an AI machine can beat a professional Go player. And so I'm not sure if you're familiar with the game of Go. So it's a very, very simple board game. And the reason why this is a difficult board game is because it's a simple and the number of combination is extremely large. And that's why it's so difficult for the computer, because the number of combinations is so large that you have to consider and many different scenario, and then the computational power required to resolve those kind of problems is gigantic. And in 2016, that was the first time in human history that computer can beat a professional Go player. So now, let me ask you one question first. Let's say today we are going to have a rematch between AlphaGo and Lee Sedol, but we are going to change the rules slightly this time. We are going to give Lee Sedol an assistant. And the name of this assistant is AlphaGo. All right, so it's AlphaGo versus Lee Sedol and AlphaGo. So who's going to win in this rematch? Who do you think is going to win? If you're going to place a bet, which side are you going to place your bet? Well, I'm sure that, a lot of you is going to place your bet on Lee Sedol plus AlphaGo. So the idea is very simple. I mean, in the history of science fiction, people were speculating the story of, AI is taking over the world, killing everybody, or taking human being into the slave. And I think there's an argument against that.
Dr. Tan, just one moment. I've seen two members of the audience saying that they're not somehow seeing the screen. I just want to double check if
Okay.
Other colleagues.
Yes.
Do you see the share screens? Because I am able to see Dr. Tang's share screen.
No,
No?
I didn't see it.
No.
No.
Okay. So let's try again. Let's try again screen sharing. Okay, sorry about the technical challenges.
No problem.
Okay, let's see.
Now see it.
Now see it?
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Tang, I'll just make you co-host again. Okay. Okay. So perhaps if you don't mind, maybe you can start from your first slides, and just so that they have the opportunity to see the slides again. Okay. Thank you everyone who highlighted the problem here. Thank you everyone. Okay.
Okay, so I'll start over very briefly. So my name is Albert Tang. I'm an associate professor in RMIT University, Vietnam. For those of you who are curious, RMIT is an Australian university, and we have a campus in Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh City. And this is a very brief introduction about my research background. I do health informatics, AI, simulation, and psychology, and so on, and some of my prior experience listed in here. So I'm going to skip this one, but the general consensus is about generative AI is projected to have a very great impact on the positive impact on the economy, increasing productivity and so on. So a lot of the focus has been focusing on how AI will replace human on various roles in the economy or in the community. But I think a lot of people are placing a wrong focus about how AI can replace human. My argument is that we should focus on how human be augmented, be enhanced by AI. So here we have a classical moment of AlphaGo versus Lee Sedol. This is the first time in human history for which a computer is defeated a human professional player in the game of Go. So now let's have a hypothetical situation. If we have a rematch between AlphaGo and Lee Sedol, But this time, we are going to give an assistant to Lee Sedol, and the name of this assistant is AlphaGo. So we have AlphaGo versus AlphaGo and Lee Sedol. So I think a lot of you would argue that, Lee Sedol is going to win in this rematch. So that is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. So instead of having AI to replace a human, we should be looking into how AI can augment the human cognition. So this is the concept we call augmented cognition. So we're using technology to enhance human capability. It's similar to the concept of Iron Man, but on the brain. So you enhance human cognitive capability through the use of technology in order to extend the human natural capability. So in the history of science fiction, you'll see people talking about story about AI taking over the world, turning human into slave. And there's an argument saying that that's never going to be happening. The reason of that is by the time that AI achieved the capability that over human can team up with AI and then, counteract with that movement of AI taking over human. That is actually an argument by Fred Brooks, who's a Turing Award winner. So the idea is very simple. It's an arithmetic of A plus B is larger than A. So human plus AI is larger than human by itself. Okay, so it's like 1 plus 2 is larger than 1. Okay, unless human is a negative value, of course. And then a lot of people were judging or criticizing that technology is going to develop a lazy mind. I remember when I was a student, my mother always asked me not to use the calculator, because saying that if I use the calculator, I will not ever be able to do math or to calculate. But I think, well, of course, I learned how to do math. And then in some sense, you can argue that our generation with the calculator can do arithmetics a lot slower than the previous generation. But on the other hand, when I use calculator, I save some time. So I save some effort. So the big question is, for the time and effort that you save, what are you doing? So you use ChatGPT in your homework. You save some time and you save some effort. So what are you doing with that extra time? So that is the big question. So this argument has been ongoing for more than 2,000 years. Socrates once condemned writing is a poison to the mind. So basically, back in the history when writing was not, very popularized, Socrates condemned that you should not write, because if you write, you will forget. And then that is poisonous to the mind. It produces forgetfulness in the mind, and you are not practicing your memory. So are we not able to remember anything because of the invention of writing for the last 2,000 years? Well, certainly not. Maybe you can argue that our memory right now is not as good as people in history. But for the time that we save, for the effort that we save, we are doing something more complex, more productive. So that is the whole concept that I'm trying to argue. So if you are looking into AI as a replacement of human being, I think the focus is wrong. We should be focusing how AI can augment human mind to make us wiser, to make it faster, committing less mistake. So that should be the focus. So general speaking is that, we should develop our mindsets or our skill set to be more AI savvy. By being AI savvy, we means that we need to understand AI's capability and limitation. We need to address issue in risk, liability, and ethics. And more importantly, that we need to stay current and keep building skills. Because time to time again, my student asks me what kind of tools, what kind of AI tool I use. My answer is that I'm using the exact same tool that you use. And chances are that after 6 months, all those tools are going to be obsolete. There's going to be another new tools and another new version of that. So that's why you need to be AI savvy, so that you need to understand some of the fundamental concepts so that you can pick up those skills and learn those new tools, fast. I'll just give a very general introduction about what large language model is. So in one sentence, large language model is the next word predictor. So you feed in part of the sentence to the model. The model predict what is the next word. So the sky is blue, the sky is clear. And that prediction is made based on a training data set on this model. So this model is being trained on a huge amount of text. So you can imagine the entire library or the entire Wikipedia and a lot of magazine and newspaper are used as the training data sets for this model. So this model can mimic human in generating language. And this is basically a model who's generating what is the next word. So the sky is blue. So after, well, maybe I can move it slightly. Well, I should have done that. So this is the sky is blue. So when you feed this part of the sentence all the way back to the model again, it's going to predict the next word. You feed it over again and it's going to predict the next word. You feed it all over again and it's going to predict the next word. And that's how large language model works. It is the next word predictor. And the prediction is based on a huge amount of text that exists in human history. So another thing I want to point out is that, so you have a large language model is non-deterministic. That means it is probabilistic. So every time that it is predicting the next word, it is slightly different. It is not simply picking the highest the word with the highest probability. It's just picking one out of the list of words that has the highest probability, and that's why it is creating some sort of uncertainty. It's just like human being. When we speak about the same concept, every time we speak about it, we speak it slightly differently. So more or less it's the same thing, but we just speak it slightly differently. Okay, so that's in general how large language model works. So just to sum up a little bit about behavior of large language models, large language models are very good at handling natural language. So the language that we use in the everyday life, like English, Spanish, or any other natural language that we use. But it is very bad at arithmetics and logic. So you can imagine that, if you ask ChatGPT a very simple logical question, chances are that the answer is not within the learning database, the data set. And that's why it is making a mistake, because this question was not asked before, exactly like you ask it that way. So it is not actually calculating the arithmetics. It is looking into some of the pattern in its training data sets in order to generate the solution or generate the answer for you. Large language models are probabilistic. It is non-deterministic. So even if you ask the same question, you may have a different results. Okay. There are two major problems or two major issues with modern large language model right now. You may heard about that. The first problem is AI hallucination. That means large language models may present information that is not correct. Okay. Another issue is data privacy. Let's talk about the first one first. AI hallucination. That means we are generating text that seems plausible at first glance, but upon closer inspection, it's not based on real facts. So it's generating fact that is not correct. The reason of that is the model is always instructed to complete the sentence. Even if the model has no idea about, or have no answer or no right or wrong, basically. So you can imagine that if you're asking a small kid about some knowledge that the kid doesn't know, the kid tends to make things up. The same thing applies to large language model. You ask the question and maybe you're not asking the question clearly. And then since the instruction to the model is to answer or to respond, no matter what. So, then it is trying to make things up based on the pattern in this training data sets. So, and AI hallucination cannot be avoided. And this is proven mathematically. So all large language model has the problem of AI hallucination. So when you use AI, large language model, this is something that you definitely need to bear in mind. So the information presented here may not be entirely correct. And you are responsible of utilizing those knowledge. So you are the person who hold accountable for the information if you just directly copy and paste the results. However, it cannot be solved. It is a problem that cannot be solved, but it is a problem that can be mitigated. It can be minimized. All right. So I'm not going to get into the technical detail of that, but there are certain things that you can do in order to minimize the chance of AI hallucination. If you look into the root cause, the source of AI hallucination, there are 5 major causes. First of all, there are misinformation in the training data set. Well, if it is taking information in Wikipedia as the training data set, chances are that the information is wrong. It's also possible that there's missing information in the training data set. The question that you're asking does not have an answer, right? Or there could be contradicting information in the training data set. So one paper say this and the other paper say that. There's a contradicting information, and that's one of the possible source of AI hallucination. Maybe you're not asking the question correctly. Your prompt is not clear. Another source of hallucination is the model architecture, the algorithm itself. Another major issue of large language model is data privacy. A lot of people are not aware that when you ask question in ChatGPT, your question, everything that you write in your prompt, including the data, is transmitted to the OpenAI server. It may be stored and used for training future model. So this is an interesting case from Samsung. So Samsung bans ChatGPT among employees after sensitive code leak. So basically, you can imagine that some of their employer were using ChatGPT and they copy their corporate code, programming code into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT save it and use it for training for future model. And now their executive go into ChatGPT and asking some sensitive question, and they realize that ChatGPT can answer those questions with very sensitive or confidential information that no one should know. So basically, if you're a doctor, if you're trying to, look for a second opinion from AI, make sure that you are not entering your patient's privacy information on there. You need to be very careful about this. So just to sum up, when you use ChatGPT or any large language models, you must always bear in mind that information from generative AI can be hallucinated, right? All conversation may be saved by the server and may be used for future modeling. So do not enter any sensitive information. Well, think about it. Are you willing to send your, let's say, credit card statement or bank statement to ChatGPT? Well, if that's not what you want to do, then you should not send any sensitive information like patient information or diagnose to ChatGPT, because it can be saved by the server and used for future use. If you need to use large language model to process information, sensitive information, you can actually host your own large language model locally, right? You can buy your own computer and host a large language model of your own. So even if you unplug the network cable, you can still have access to that locally hosted model so that all the data is contained within the institution without leaking to a third party. So there are some remediation and mitigation that you can do. All right. So of course, I'm not going to go into the glory detail of the technical detail. So just a few things that I need to point out is AI is not magic. If you're having mediocre results, chances are that you're asking the wrong question, or your instruction is simply not clear enough. If you just ask an arbitrary question and expect AI to read your mind and do everything perfect to you, you are using AI as a magic, right? Instead, you should treat AI as your intern. So when you have a new intern working with you, you need to get to know your intern. You need to know the behavior, what is the strength and what is the shortcoming of this person. You need to give it feedback and coaching so that you teach AI or your intern how to do things right. So treat AI as your teammate, not replacing human, not as an autonomous machine. I think that is, well, if you forget about anything that I talk about today, I think that is one single take-home message that you should bear in mind. So next, I'm going to give you a number of projects that we've been doing with AI in the perspective of public health or medicine, maybe in the last 2 or 3 years. So this is a project that we started about 3 years ago, I think, 2 to 3 years ago. So we developed a socially assisted chatbot for people with dementia. The idea is that we have a chatbot for which you can talk naturally in oral English, basically. So we do this we developed this AI chatbot with the goal of helping people with dementia. So we set up the chatbot as a healthcare workers. So the people with dementia can talk to this person and asking questions and so on. So we are asking LM to play the role of a healthcare workers. So to do this, we're essentially raising the social interaction of the older people with dementia and providing the social needs and support. And at the same time, we can also ease the workload and burnout of geriatric nurses. So I'm going to show you this video here. Is a very short video just to illustrate the idea about what we're doing here. So you see, this is So this is a talking avatar, and you see me here trying to communicate with the talking avatar. And I'm acting as the people with dementia for which the character is acting as a healthcare workers.
It's understandable to feel a bit overwhelmed. However, we are here to support you and make sure you...
Well, hold on. I'm sorry. Let's see. I think this is the... All right. So this is one.
Have a comfortable stay.
I'm having trouble remembering things lately.
That's okay. We can take this time to help you remember and refresh your memory.
I can't seem to remember the names of the people around me, and I keep forgetting why I'm here.
That's understandable. John, you just arrived here and it's all new to you. Let's take it one step at a time, and I can help you remember the names of the people here.
So that's the idea. So you can customize the chatbot with certain kind of behavior. In this case, we customize it as a healthcare workers, trying to be supportive, talkative, and so on. So that is one of our early attempts in applying large language model in supporting people in the public health settings. Our second attempt is to use exactly the same thing, but we switch the role. So now this time, the character is playing as a patient, for which the human user is a student. So we're using it for training nurse, basically. So in applying problem-based learning, and we're asking the large language model to play the role of a patient for training purposes. And here we have an illustration video for which now the character is playing the role of people with depression. And then the human is acting as a student nurse, learning how to communicate with people with depression.
Not great. I can't focus. And my grades are slipping because I just can't keep up with anything anymore.
Do you feel motivated to do your schoolwork or participate in class?
No, I don't feel motivated at all. It's hard to care about school when everything just feels so meaningless.
Do you feel like you have someone to talk to about your feelings?
Not really. I feel like no one truly understands what I'm going through, and I don't want to burden anyone with my problems.
Well, I would suggest you to start with a little physical activities. I know it's hard, but try to do something lightweight such as yoga.
I appreciate the suggestion. I'll try, but even small things feel overwhelming right now.
All right, so you get the idea, right? So I want to make a note that this character that we develop is like more than 2 or 3 years old already. We have some latest development. Well, you can see that the audio is very monotone. The interaction is not very engaging. So we're using some of the early ChatGPT 3.5 model when we develop this. But as you notice, that things are moving very fast in the technology area. So we are making some improvement in the avatar, which I'm going to show it to you very briefly. So this is actually a character that we developed for our aviation program. This is not related to public health. So in aviation, we have a class who is doing incidents investigation. In this particular scenario, so this is a bird strike scenario for which a bird is hitting the cockpit during the landing process of an aircraft. So we need to conduct an investigation. And here we are training the student who is conducting the interview with a person who is doing the fact-finding in the incident investigation. So I just want to play it very briefly that you can see that the character is more realistic, the voice is more natural, and we also have emotion added onto the tonal voice. It's kind of soft.
Would you say that the approach was normal?
Anyway, so this is what we do in utilizing LLM in different kind of scenario, in patient support, in training for healthcare workers. And this is a project that I conducted with Professor Kwok, who is also here, for which we are using large language model to, let me see if I can put it back into full screen. All right. So we're using large language model to extract information from free-form text in medical documentation. So I think maybe some of you are familiar with the situation for which, you know, there are many medical documentation being generated in every day. Particularly, there are some free-form text like in narratives. Most of these medical documentation in reality is just for the purpose of documentation. They are not being utilized from the informatics perspective. So what we do is we use large language model to read these free-form texts and extract them into symptom labels. So yes, you see the free-form text is often neglected because it's very complex to read or to analyze data. So we utilize, as you know, that large language model is very good at processing natural language, such as free-form text. So we can use it to process this kind of information and extract symptom and identify more symptomatic cases in order to improve the detection or maybe flagging of early symptoms and signs of illness. To put it in a more general form, LLM is very good at processing text, like emails. People use it to distinguish between junk mail and normal mail. Product comments, you see people, especially in the company, they're using LLM to read like Amazon product comments, for example, identify complaints and issues, doing web scraping and extracting data from Reddit posts, analyzing network log. And there's a relatively new paradigm or phenomenon for which traditionally, when we deal with data science, we have to store everything on a database in a very rigid, structured table format. And then you have to ask a computer scientist to craft the SQL query in order to extract the required information. But right now, you can have a bunch of information just laying around in the system without a very organized fashion. And then you use natural language to extract the information from this bunch of data. We call this the data lake technically. So you can see, instead of using SQL, you can just say summarize recent customer feedback about delivery delay from this bunch of information. All right. So that is one of the latest trend in data warehousing from the data management's perspective. We also have this is actually a capstone project from one of our undergraduate student. So this is a very typical situation. You get sick, you go see a doctor, and then have a medical interview. You describe what's wrong with you. But now you can also have a AI agent sitting on the table, overhearing this conversation. And then at the end of this conversation, useful information can be extracted and put it into the medical documentation format. So, and we find that it is very robust. It's accommodating errors, noise, and accents, and so on. So it is a very typical LLM application in meeting, but we are just putting it into the medical interview scenario. We also use large language models in disease transmission modeling. So in the traditional setting, you have a public health officer trying to develop models, infectious disease transmission models. And typically the public health officer is working with a programmer. All right. And you can imagine that the process is pretty tedious. You have a meeting together and you describe your problem, the programmer go home and then develop it and then go back and then validate and verify. And then you just go back and forth and bounce back. And usually this process takes several weeks at least to develop a good model. Because in the reason of that is it's very typical that the public health officer are not very competent in programming. That's why most of the time public health officers need to work with a programmer. So here we are, instead of using a professional programmer, we create a scenario for which a public health officer is working with a large language model. This is a co-pilot approach, so that the public health officer is developing the transmission model with AI together. So the advantage of that is lowering the technological barrier. So now you have a relatively green or relatively new programmer, with a relatively low green programming skills, that you still are able to work with AI to develop something relatively complex. And I think our experience shows that the most advantageous thing that we discover is that it speed up the model development process drastically, because you are having instantaneous response from AI rather than asking the programmer to go back and then wait several weeks and come back and then work on it again. So there is a general trend in software engineering. We call this vibe coding. So basically it is writing software by describing what you want in natural language, like in English. Right. So some of the programmers right now, they are no longer writing program word by word. They are writing program using natural language, which I have to forewarn you, this is a controversial this is a controversial issue because a lot of people were saying that, they discover a lot of bugs, the program are not working properly by using vibe coding. But, it is something that is ongoing in the software development or software engineering industry, I have to say. I talked to the industry partner here, and they are saying that right now they expect their programmer to be 40% more productive comparing with 3 years ago. So basically, traditionally, if you're working in a team of 10, right now you're working with a team of 6. And they observe that their programmer are reading a lot more code rather than writing code. So there's a general trend in software development industry of utilizing large language model to assist the programming task. So we're doing the same thing here, but we are assisting a public health officer in developing disease transmission models. We also utilize generative AI graphics in education. And you can apply it in public health in generating nursing education or public health communication. So imagine that, once again, traditionally, you need to work with a graphic artist, describe what you want, what you need, and then they come back and then develop the infographics or comics or communication piece with you, and then they come back and then you see if it is technically correct, and then there's usually go several bounds and backs, So sometimes it's very difficult to translate these difficult message into visual representation. So once again, by utilizing generative AI, we found that by shortening the time frame of bouncing back and forth, because you're having instantaneous response, so that is actually increasing the effectiveness of a great deal. So here's some of the example. Well, this is a project that we conducted about 2 years ago. You can see that we're using some of the earlier versions. So the wordings and spelling are not technically correct, which in some sense is acceptable because you can change it with relatively less effort. And the storytelling in order to explain some of the more complex ideas. So that's how we apply AI in public health communication. And then this is another interesting story. So, I'll tell you the whole story. One night about 2 years ago, I asked one of my students to ask question to ChatGPT. Well, the reason of that is because I don't speak Vietnamese, so I asked my student to ask question to ChatGPT using Vietnamese. I asked them to ask question about atrial fibrillation. So, and then ChatGPT respond in Vietnamese, saying that atrial fibrillation is Parkinson's disease, and it goes on and on talking about Parkinson's disease. So the problem of that is because of the language. As you can imagine, that there's not a lot of, it's relatively smaller amounts of useful medical information in Vietnamese comparing with English. So that's why the accuracy of large language model drops in unpopular language. So we call this low resources language. So in general speaking, people are saying that AI is great, AI is going to save the world, it's going to reduce costs and blah, blah, blah. Yes, but only in English. All right. So the performance of large language model drops in low resources language. And we further argue that large language model is going to broadening the digital divide. So the classical argument of the rich getting richer, poor getting poorer. Because, people who can speak English, who's in the developed country, they have access to the technology and AI, and they are going to be assisted by AI more. People in Vietnam who cannot speak English, do not have as good as the access to AI. They are going to be lagging behind on this AI revolution. Okay, so low resources language are mostly used by people in low mid-income country. So that is our, a phenomenon that we are predicting basically. There are some effort from our students is that we are actually fine-tuning some of this large language model with low resources language. So the fine-tuning is a technical process that we do. It's basically you are collecting a data set of QA question-answer pair. in the language, so in Vietnamese. And then you feed that to the model in order to fine-tune that to behave better in a certain, according to your training data set. So we have some effort into fine-tuning large language model for low resources language so that it is presenting information in a more accurate or more linguistically fluent fashion. So just to sum up my talk, I think, yeah, we're on a good timing here. So, well, AI is for here. It's not going to go away. So the big question next is how do we utilize it? And as I said, I think a lot of people are putting the wrong focus in replacing human with AI. We should be focused on how to enhance human capability with AI, how to uplift or educate the healthcare workers. They need to be AI savvy. How to leverage the power of AI to make their work better. How to streamline the workflow, increase productivity, increase accuracy, reduce error. At the current status, AI is not replacing human at this current moment, at least. And we strongly advocate for the human in the loop approach. So, yeah, you know, don't be lazy, just offload your job to AI. You should be work with AI together. So I think that would be what I'm summing up for my talk here. So thank you very much for your time. And please, if you have any question or if you have anything that you would like me to discuss, please feel free to, raise it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tang. So right now is a Q&A session. So for students and faculty in the audience, you may either raise your digital hands and then I will ask you to unmute and speak. Alternatively, you may type your questions in the chat and I am going to read your questions aloud so that and then Dr. Tang will answer your question. Okay? Any questions? So maybe I can start with one question here. So for colleagues in your institutions, do they start using AI as part of their education's methods and tools? As I seen you mentioned, one of the activities is, a capstone project for an undergrad that you mentioned in one of the slides. But I'm thinking, are they only in the computer science, or for example, in the other health-related disciplines? How do your colleagues incorporate AI in their teaching?
Well, there are several ways that we do. As I show you that in our aviation program, we have our talking avatar, the talking character, so that student can practice their individual skills in the investigation activities, in the aviation incident investigation. So that's one project that is ongoing that we are using in the classroom. There is actually some interesting pedagogy that I see some of our colleagues is using is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the flipped classroom pedagogy. So basically, some of our colleagues is asking their student before class to have a discussion with ChatGPT on a specific topic. And they save the log so that the teacher can review the log. But of course, there are too many students. We're not going to review like 50 different discussion by 50 different students. We can actually ask ChatGPT to summarize this 50 discussion for us so that when we are actually having the lecture in class, we know ahead of time what the student have discussed with AI about a specific topic. So we can have a more in-depth discussion rather than just presenting lectures, and things of that kind. So there's some very creative usage of AI in the classroom by some of our colleagues. And, I've been consistently learning from them.
Well, exactly. Thank you so much, because I think what you have presented to us is very enlightening. I mean, and I think for many of our American audience or international students here in America, I mean, there are many things we can learn from our colleagues across the world. And so, any questions from the floor? Okay, we see Wandu, please, I see your hand. Please, you may unmute and speak.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very enlightening. I just have like the about the concerns regarding ethics related to AI. I want to ask like what measures are currently being implemented or how what are the future directions that are like being explored to ensure that these ethical standards are like upheld or like they are being worked on to ensure that like there's responsibility in like AI use or some just asking questions regarding the AI ethics. What is being done to ensure that standards are upheld?
Well,
Thank you.
yes, thank you very much for your question. Ethics is always a difficult question. The EU is working very actively. They have the EU AI Act, for which they're proposing to regulate some of the more sensitive use of AI, including the use of AI in healthcare settings. We expect there's going to be regulations about using AI in medical setting in the EU settings. But on the other hand, because this is the EU, it's going to take them forever for the legislation. It's on the agenda. They passed the EU AI Act last year, but I suppose it's going to take them a while to have the actual legislation implemented. But aside from that, that is one of the themes that I'm trying to present here, because I'm advocating that you are using AI with you to assist you. So at the end of the day, it is your responsibility. It's not the AI's responsibility. If you use AI to replace human, then you can argue that it is AI's responsibility, in which case, in the case of Europe, it is prohibited. You cannot use AI. Well, it's supposed to be prohibited after the implementation of the AI Act, I should say. It's not prohibited right now. But I mean, if you offload all the medical process to AI, it has to be regulated. So there's a movement in there. So I don't have a very good answer to this. And we are consistently chasing after technology in terms of legislation. So if you ask me, I think there should be stricter regulation, and what's more important is there should be better education about what is the proper way to use AI rather than just using it to replace human, and that's what I'm advocating is you should work with AI, not to use AI to replace human task and process. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
But yeah, I think Dr. Tan, what you say is very important. Is that we are the human who use AI as tools to assist us, and therefore we humans bear the ethical responsibility. And if there's anything wrong, anything ethically wrong happens, we the human will bear the consequences, and we bear the responsibility or even the legal responsibility. I see one dude says that thank you very much. It does answer her question. Any further questions from the floor? Maybe I can add one more question, because in our university, we as a whole, we are exploring the use of AI in all sorts of ways, both in our research and in teaching. And right here in the German Institute of College of Public Health, one reason we started this public health informatics webinars and inviting different speakers to talk about AI and its use in public health and healthcare is that we are all very much interested in it. Many of us use ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, or Gemini to help with some of our tasks, but we haven't yet to see a lot of very successful applications in actual public health work and healthcare, but we know a lot of people are doing exploratory work just like what you're doing. And so any I know I didn't frame my question very well, but I think like compared to a very much research intensive environment, we are research but slash teaching environment here. What advice would you give us? I mean, faculty and students, graduate students alike, in our kind of like less research intensive but also research environments. To utilize AI in our research as well as teaching, perhaps like on top of what you, because for example, I don't think we have resources, for example, to create the kind of avatar to train our students. But perhaps we can partner with some people, maybe you or some others people, to do this kind of thing. So yeah, I just throwing out the question to see like
Well, but I
your
think
response.
you'll be surprised how easy and how cheap it is to make it, especially when it is assisted by AI. A lot of the work that we do here is actually we are working with AI as a co-pilot. So we work with AI to develop these tools, and that's why we get it so fast. Basically, we speed up the process a lot after utilizing AI. So, well, I think maybe you think it's empty talk, but bearing the proper mindset, you have to stay current about what's developing, because what, as I said, what I'm showing you here is already 2 years old, most of them. For the things that I'm doing currently, which I don't have much to deliver, I'm not showing to you because I don't have a deliverable, which actually it's like 2 or 3 generations after. So you really need to be staying up and keeping current about what everybody is doing and what is the current, the current technology. And then I'm literally having new technological news on a daily basis about new way of people doing things. So I learned from many different people about some of the things that we are doing. We're borrowing ideas from others by applying in public health or in our research arena. So I'm not sure if it is a good advice, but you really need to stay current about what other people are doing with AI and try to borrow their idea to see how to apply it in your own specific scenario.
Well, thank you so much, Tan, for your advice. I can think of one thing that that it can help some of my students is that whenever they have bugs in their programs, maybe in the future, we can have them to first ask AI to help debug their code before they go to the teaching assistant and before they go to the professor. Perhaps that actually will speed up all their programming in R or SAS or whatever. But I think actually many of us, perhaps that at least for me, one of the most usefulness of AI is actually help with debugging the code and find out what's wrong with my writing in the code. But
well, exactly. I do it on a daily basis, but of course, as could be as easy as copy your code to ChatGPT and ask what's wrong with it. Copy the error message to ChatGPT and ask how do I fix that. But right now in modern the IDE, so basically in this environment that we develop software, there's already built-in AI function in there. But maybe a little bit more advanced for you, but it could be as simple as just copy and paste your thing to ChatGPT and ask, can you teach me? Or can you teach me as if I'm a idiot, or as if I'm a rudimentary programmer? Can you explain this code to me? So that's what I'm saying is, you need to ask the right question.
I agree. And I think basically AI basically assists us as professors to help speed up the students' learning process, and then so that we can really focus the students' times in doing the actual thinking about the programming, as well as us really on trying to save our time so that we use our time to answer questions that AI cannot answer. And
exactly.
let the AI help students solving the most rudimentary level debugging problems.
Exactly. Because you are not a programmer. You don't need to know how to do professionally how to debug code. Your time should be spent on something more valuable.
I agree. And so, well, we're really grateful. I know it's late in Vietnam, but I really appreciate Dr. Tang's times, and I know Dr. Tang has been super productive in your research, in the applications of AI in healthcare and public health in the past few years. And I hope to, to invite Dr. Tang again to speak to us and hopefully introduce some of Dr. Tang's literature to our students here in the Bees department and also in the public health informatics concentration. I would like to thank Dr. Tang again for your presentation today, and thank you everyone on a Monday morning joining us on this cold winter day. So thank you everyone, and I will be in touch with Dr. Tang with our thank you letter. Thank you so much, Dr. Tang.
Feel free to get in touch with me, and thank you very much for your time. And I'm looking forward to talk to any of you. Just, my email is there, so feel free to send me an email.
Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch for research collaboration. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.